Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I want to go over some recent things I found. I believe all of these are from Massachusetts. The first thing I wanted to go over is a porcupine. So I was walking down a trail early morning and I noticed a porcupine was getting ready to cross the trail, so I just stood completely still. Now, from our wildlife tracking class, we've learned that a lot of these rodents don't have very good vision. I believe the porcupine may be one of those. So what I noticed is when I just stopped, the porcupine actually turned and started walking towards me. I'm guessing it smelled something and maybe it was coming closer to figure out what I was. My camera was making a little bit of noise because it's a DSLR, so it makes a clicking noise when I take a picture. But other than taking a picture, I held pretty much completely still, and the porcupine just kept moving closer and closer and closer. And eventually it got within, probably 10 feet of me, to the point where I really couldn't zoom out any further to take zoom in any further to take pictures of it. And so at that point, I think it did determine that I was something it didn't want to encounter. So it turned and moved. It looked like it was going to go up a tree for a second, but then it just walked on, continued on the way it was going. But it was a pretty cool experience. I've gotten close to porcupines before, but I believe it was me mostly walking up on them, or they were coming down a tree and didn't notice me. This is the first one I've seen actually change direction and come towards me, so that was interesting. I bumped into a barred owl in the woods. Barred owls seem to really like swampy areas, so there's a barred owl I ran into. Not uncommon to see a belted kingfisher. There's a picture of one of those, and the cranes are nesting this time of year, so I took some pictures of cranes on the nest. Here's a beaver I was able to get close to, and we talked earlier about some of the rodents not having great vision. I believe the beaver is one of those, and the beaver knew I was there, but I don't believe it could see me very well. For one thing, I was up on the bank and there were some weeds in the way. For two, I believe, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe they have very poor vision. And so the beaver seemed to be smelling the air. I noticed as it was moving towards me, it seemed to be smelling the air and going back and forth, trying to figure out exactly what I was. So I was able to get pretty close to it without upsetting it. I've seen them do a tail slap, and I am interpreting that tail slap as they want you to leave the area. And I was able to get close and just kind of be calm and not have them do that. And now let's get into some Massachusetts turtles. This first one is some kind of a not native species here. I think it's a red-eared slider without a red ear. But whatever that is, I'm pretty sure that's not a native species here. Then we're going to move on to the Blandings turtle. Now, the Blandings turtle is a turtle. I don't know exactly what its status is in Massachusetts, but it's basically a species of special concern. It may even be considered an endangered species within the state. But whatever it is, the Blandings turtle occurs in the eastern half of Massachusetts. And where I find them are in swampy areas. So this one is in the main swamp. The first one it showed was in the main swamp itself. The other ones, and where I find a lot of them in the spring, is coming out of the vernal pools, and they're making their way into the larger wetlands, but they're coming out of small vernal pools early in the spring. And next up is a beautiful turtle that occurs in the eastern half of North America called the spotted turtle. Now, where I find these at are like in sphagnum bogs and small ponds. Some of the books say that if you see a bunch of turtles basking, it's just going to be painted turtles. I found that not to be true. I find these these spotted turtles bask right alongside with the painted turtles, and I find them in the same ponds, the same sphagnum bogs. Not uncommonly. And the last turtle I'm going to cover is the wood turtle, which I think is just a beautiful turtle. Again, it's one that's rare here in Massachusetts, or is declining probably. It seems to prefer, at least in the habitats I've found them, I would call it slow-moving streams with open grassy areas around them. That's where I have good luck finding these. And where you find them, they're not necessarily uncommon. If you go to those places where they're found, it's not that hard to find one in the spring. But I think just those places, just so much of the habitat has been destroyed that it's a real problem. But yeah, you can still find them. They are still around, and I just think they're a beautiful turtle.